Well, what it is the slope of the fundamental triangle for those points. So if you've got 2 points, I'm fairly well convinced that everybody that's been doing their homework understands what to do with a fundamental triangle. And so probably do people who are only doing some of the homework. Okay? Because that's the first thing, one of the very first things we did, first day, right? People understand fundamental triangles, except maybe I'm still not seeing people labeling them absolutely correctly. Okay? So we'll talk about that again in class. Very simple. We talked about it once, so I'm not going to say too much. But I think I forgot to turn the camera on when I talked about that. So in case you're relying on the videos, we'll make sure we have a video of that. Okay, anyhow, so we have this, right? So if I ask now for the average rate of change for f of x on the interval a less than or equal to x less than or equal to b, okay, is the slope of the fundamental triangle where the x equals a and x equals b points on the graph. On the graph of your y equals f of x function, right? Okay? Now, the x equals a point is a f of a, right? Okay? Because f of a is what you get when you plug a into whatever the function is. That's going to be your y. And a is your x. And we've had problems where I ask you to evaluate a f of a and b f of b for symbols, for numbers, and so forth. Okay? So if you don't remember that, look back at it a little bit. But you see, we're building the concept and the procedure for getting the average rate of change of a function based on the fundamental triangle and on knowing what the function notation tells us about points on a graph, right? So we've done this, and we're putting it together to do this.
Y is x equal to a and x equal to b.
Why is x equal to a?
Yeah, and b, because it say x equals.
Well, you need 2 points.
Okay.
And you've got an interval that goes from x equals a to x equals b, right?
Okay.
So the 2 unique points on that interval are the 2 endpoints, so it makes sense to determine the average rate of change in terms of those endpoints. Because then you have an average over the entire interval from the whole left-hand side to the whole right-hand side of the interval. Okay? So that's why we do that. It's a good question.
Then then the interval from a lesser than or equal to x, lesser than or equal to b, does that incorporate the y too? Like
Well, we'll draw it on a graph, and that'll answer your question, okay? So what we have now, if we do the graph, well, here we have the point A, f of a. Now, I don't know if a f of a is to the right or the left of, well, actually, if it's a less than or equal to x less than or equal to b, it'll be to the left of the point B f of B, because A will be to the left of B. Now, f of B might be above or below f of A, might even be even with it or level with it, right? So I don't know which, so I'm just going to draw it the way I usually draw it, but it might be that the point B f of B is lower than AF of A. It might even be straight across from AF of A, in which case you'd have zero slope, okay? But the general case is it's either going to be above or below, even though it could be straight across. Okay, so now what do we have? We construct our fundamental triangle. Now what do you know about the fundamental triangle?
90 degree.
The what?
90-degree angle.
I'm sorry.
90-degree angle.
Yeah, it's got a 90-degree angle. We know this. And we know that one of the legs is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the line segment from this point to this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what can we tell about the triangle? What are the things that you calculate for a fundamental triangle?
The slope.
You want the slope. What do you need to do before you get the slope?
Find the rise and run.
You got to find the rise and the run. Then you can find the slope, and that's going to give you your average rate of change.
Okay.
Okay? You also have the hypotenuse, but since this question doesn't, if I just ask you to label the fundamental triangle, you would want to label the hypotenuse as well as the slope, right?
Yeah.
But right now, we're just after the average rate of change, so we're not going to bother with the hypotenuse. It's not relevant to the question, okay? Although, again, if I ask you to label a fundamental triangle, you're going to have to label everything, including the hypotenuse, because that's important for other applications, some of which sneaked on to the major quiz and confused the daylights out of people, but of course I'm not going to count that, okay? Unless you got it right, in which case I'll probably count it double, okay? Because it'd be very good if you were able to answer those questions. Okay, now, so what's the run?
The run would be B minus A.
Yeah. The run is from x equals A to x equals B, right? So down here, it's like you got your x-axis. Now we don't know if the x-axis is here or up here, right? And we don't know if the y-axis is over there, maybe in the middle, okay? So I'm just going to draw an x-axis anywhere it's convenient. So what we have here is we have x equals A. What we have here is x equals B. And right here is the interval from x equals A to x equals B, right? So this thing is the interval A less than or equal to x less than or equal to B. Okay? And that's what I've shaded here. And then we can see that to go from A to B, if we're going in this direction, that the run is going to be B minus A. Okay? Now, if we've gone from this point to this point, then the run is from here to here, and it'll be B minus A. And the rise is going to be what?
F of B minus F of A.
Exactly. And I almost wrote F of A, didn't I? Get ahead of myself. Okay? So here's the run. Here's the rise. So the slope is rise divided by run, F of B minus F of A over B minus A. Right? So now the rate of change of f of x, write out all the words, because you want to understand these words, with respect to x, and this with respect to x is often left off. Your textbook leaves it off, so I've often left it off like I did here. Okay, but it's important, very important, especially if you're going to be studying calculus. So rate of change of f of x with respect to x is the slope f of b minus f of a over b minus a. Now there's another way to phrase this problem, and I'm going to go ahead and phrase it, but I'll do it in a separate video because it'll allow me to tell you what the difference quotient is. Okay?